For all your email management needs, look no further than Aweber, the preferred choice for geekoutdoors.com. Sign up today and you could get a 30-day free trial by checking out the affiliate link in the description area below. Hey, welcome to another episode of geekoutdoors.com. Now, if you've watched my channel, you know that I absolutely love Linux. However, not all is perfect in the Linux world. Now, I did do a previous video where I did a top 5 reasons why you should not use Linux. And this was primarily focused on people who are using Windows and Mac who were thinking of moving over to Linux. And I wanted to give them 5 things that they might consider before making the move. Now, on this episode, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 things that I hate about Linux. And the reason why I hate this about Linux is because these things are not available on Linux. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first one. And the first one is Adobe. Okay, and Adobe, regardless if you like the products or hate the company, whatever the case might be, the reality is a lot of companies and businesses use Adobe. Okay, and especially if you are a creative content creator, any of those things, you're going to have Adobe, whether it's on Windows or Mac. Now, in Linux, there are options and alternatives, okay? Like, for example, for Photoshop, you can use GIMP. For Adobe Illustrator, you can use Inkscape. And then for your video editing, you can use Kdenlive or OpenShot. And then even for your publishing, I use Calibre, which is something that you can use to replace Adobe InDesign. And so there are definitely options available in Linux where you could still do a lot of the same things. But the problem is, if you are dealing with other businesses and companies, they're using Adobe products, well, you're not going to be able to have that 100% compatibility with whatever you created on your Linux desktop or your Linux laptop. So that is a huge pain in the butt, to say the least. And everything is going towards the web, and so maybe in the future Adobe might provide that. But the main thing is that a lot of this software, you want it installed locally on your machine and not through a web-only interface. Okay, and Adobe is a big one. Okay, that's the first reason. So the second thing, which is similar to this, is software availability on Linux. Okay, a lot of your software, the first place always that it's going to be is on Microsoft Windows. The second place is on Apple Macs. And then finally, the third place is on Linux. Okay, so that is a big problem if you use these tools on these other operating systems and you wanted to use the same things in Linux. For example, the Google Adwords editor. If you are a digital marketer and you do this professionally and you have clients, then you need this tool. But unfortunately, it's only available in Windows. So if you downloaded this, you would get an exe file. Okay? And that is not something that is going to work in Linux. Okay? At least not natively. And then there's other software like the Sony Vegas video editing. It's only available for Windows. It's not available on Linux. And so if you're somebody who used Sony Vegas for a long time and then you were thinking about moving over to Linux, well, you're not going to be able to do that natively. Okay, now people who use Wine will always say you could use that, or maybe you can use a virtual machine. But I'm talking about just not having to do that. Just getting it and installing it on my Linux desktop. Okay, and even to some extent Microsoft Office. Okay, now you're probably saying, well, you can use LibreOffice, and I do, and I absolutely love LibreOffice, but it's not 100% compatible with Microsoft Office. Okay, primarily due to formatting issues. Okay, now you can use this online Office, which is the Office 365. Okay, so that's excellent that Microsoft offered this option. However, just as I stated earlier, I'm talking about natively available on Linux, where I can install it on Linux without relying on a web-based solution. Okay, so that is my number 2 reason, and it just bothers the hell out of me. I mean, just to be real. because especially if you're using this for business or for work, not having these tools available, this software, it just makes it even harder to move completely over to Linux, and I really hate that. Okay, so let's move on to the third reason, and this is a big one for a lot of people. Gaming. Gaming. That is probably, I would say, the number one reason why a lot of people don't switch over to Linux. And I've talked about this many times before. Gaming has gotten so much better in Linux. I think mainly because of Steam. But, you're still not going to get all the newest games. Okay? I mean, they're still going to be first and foremost on the Microsoft platform first. Like, for example, Tekken 7 just came out. And, I can't play it. And I really wanted to play this game. And it's only going to be available, at least for the PC, on Microsoft Windows. And obviously, if you have a console, then you could play it on the console as well. But I don't have a console. And I'm not going to move over to Microsoft Windows just to game. However, if I was a serious gamer, I would definitely have a Microsoft Windows machine just to play games. But that's not, the ideal solution for somebody who is a Linux user. Now, there are games that have been ported over to Linux. But, if you compare that version to the Windows versions, I would say 99% of the times, for the same hardware, it's always going to run better in Microsoft Windows because it's optimized for that platform. And also, even if a game is ported over to Linux, normally it's not day and date with the release on Microsoft Windows. You usually have to wait a few months, or sometimes more than a year, or sometimes you'll never get the game for Linux. And so if you're a gamer, this is really gonna make you hate Linux, just period. And not because it's anything to do with Linux in this case, is because Linux is definitely capable of running games. It's just that it's not being made for that platform. Okay, so that is my third reason. Now the fourth reason is similar to gaming, and that is drivers, specifically drivers for hardware. And this is a good example where this affects me as well, because I bought the AMD RX 470 GPU. However, the latest and greatest drivers and also this whole software packages, this Radeon Software Crimson Relive Edition, is not available on Linux. It's only available for the Microsoft platform. Okay, now I can get a driver, which I did install for my GPU, which I'm so happy that AMD did. This is the AMD GPU Pro Driver. However, that is not the same as having the brand new latest and greatest. So that I could use really cool features like Radeon Relive, where I could do really awesome screen captures for gaming. Okay, and that is, once again, similar to the gaming. Man, it just really sucks. And it doesn't just affect your GPU. There are many other devices such as printers, or maybe 3D printers, scanners. There's so many other pieces of hardware where they don't have native drivers for Linux. Although you can use open source compatible drivers, it is just not the same as having ones that were specifically built for that. Okay, so the final thing that I hate about Linux, and that mainly because it does not offer, is more Linux hardware options. Okay, now we do have amazing companies like System76 who offers Linux laptops and desktops, but the variety and availability of it is just absolutely laughable compared to the Windows world. Okay, now there are other manufacturers like Dell. They used to offer Linux solutions, and they were one of the first to offer Linux desktops and mostly laptops, but now it looks like they stopped doing that. There was the XPS 13 Linux version as well, but that's not available anymore. And there are other manufacturers like this company here, Linux City. This looks like a pretty cool company, lots of options for the Linux lover. And also there's another company like this one. It's a smaller company, Think Penguin. They've partnered with Linux Mint here as well. But, just looking at these, that's like pretty much nothing, compared to what you can get in the Windows world, and even in the Mac world. There are way more options. But I'm primarily talking about Windows. And also, System76, they have done an incredible thing for the Linux community, and I hope their business keeps growing. But if you think about the pricing for even this hardware, for the same amount, you're definitely going to get a more powerful Microsoft Windows machine, and also you're going to get better designs and hardware. Okay, so that's just the reality of it. Now, obviously, the other option that most people do is just buy a Windows machine or even Mac machine and put Linux on top of it. But, it's not available Linux only for Linux users. I mean, there is availability, but since it's so small and limited, it's pretty much like it's not there. Okay, so if you are looking for a Linux machine, definitely support these companies that offer Linux solutions. But I wish there was more. I just wish there was more. And that makes me hate Linux once again for the fact that it is not available. Okay, and gives it another reason why it's harder to move away from platforms like Windows or Mac. So those are the top 5 things that I hate about Linux, and once again, mainly because they are not available or the availability is very limited. Okay, so if you had any thoughts on any of these things that I talked about, if you had your own reasons why there are things that frustrate you or just simply that you hate about Linux, be sure to leave it in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, leave a like and subscribe. And if you wanted to support my channel further, you could do that at patreon.com/Geek Outdoors. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.